Hello everybody, this is Chris Bird or Monkey Dude 1313, and this is episode number 2 of Master Set Mondays. Last set we went over XY Ancient Origins and its host of Mega and Primal Pokemon, which are a fan favorite. And this time we're going to be going over one of the more popular and expensive sets from the Sun Moon era. And that set is set number 5, Sun and Moon Ultra Prism. This set is a very defining set for a lot of people because of the trainers in it, the effect those trainers had on the game itself, or the reintroduction of some trainers that had been available previously, and some of the very cool Ultra Beasts that were present in this set. I will get into those as we move through the pages themselves. Alright, so this set was released back in February of 2018, which means the set is a little over 7.5 years old now. We opened 3 cases of this set when we were at our old house, and at the time it was a relatively financially irresponsible decision. However, jump forward 7.5 years and all of a sudden I look like a genius, so I can appreciate that. One of the things I really like about the Sun Moon era cards is that the holos have an extremely unique holo pattern to them. Unfortunately, they didn't have things like the Cosmos holo, and they didn't have the Starburst from base set or any of the other typically accepted holo patterns, but instead, theming with the Sun Moon era, you get these really cool kind of like Aurora Borealis type effects on the holo itself. So you can see how it's not just a single color, and you get all of these really cool wavy lines in there. So I quite like this holo pattern. It is way up there for me with one of the best. This set was actually the first set to introduce Prism Cards. These Prism Cards were cards that you could only include one of in your deck. They had this giant prism here at the bottom, and when they died, they went to the Lost Zone instead of the discard pile. And the Lost Zone, or similar, is something that the Pokemon TCG has been flirting on and off with for quite a long time. Sometimes it'll be in rotation, sometimes not, and they'll sometimes bring back cards like this one to bring back the Lost Zone effects. I quite like these Prism Stars, but if you were to go to a site like TCG Player, you'd notice that most of them are around $1 or $2. So if you're looking for a really low entry point, but extremely cool subset of cards to collect, these Ultra Prisms might be for you. Interesting story, when we started selling on TCG Player, we were listing all 10 to 20 extra copies we had of each of these Prisms. And very, very frequently, we would have people come in and buy one of every Prism we have, and we'd send them all out. Of course, there are some cards like Ditto Prism that are worth significantly more than the others, but most of them are $1 to $3. And so, very, very cool cards, those Prism Stars. Moving right along, this was the first set to include Duskmane Necrozma and Dawn Wings Necrozma, which were the kind of fusion between the Pokemon Necrozma and Solgaleo or Lunala. And this was quite an important plot point in the Sun and Moon games at the time, if you had played them. But a lot of people just think that these cards are either very cool or very weird. I quite like the concept, although it is not one of my favorite kind of mechanic gimmicks that they've made in the game. Moving right along, we are slowly approaching the fancy 3 pages in the middle of this set. But I wanted to quickly bring up Silvally here. Silvally was first introduced in the previous set. Well, either the previous set, Crimson Invasion, or the set before that, Burning Shadows. I don't exactly remember. But every time they printed Silvally, they would print a trainer card that allowed you to change Silvally's type. In the games, Silvally could change its type using discs or memories, as you can see here. And you would have to attach this card to your Silvally to change its type. If I recall, since I played the TCG at the time, I don't think Silvally and the memories were used very often. But it is a very neat idea, a neat concept, and it was fun to look forward to which types are they going to add next. As you can see with the Cyrus, Prism Stars were not limited just to Pokemon. They could be attached to trainer cards as well, and have a very interesting effect on the game. Alright. So if I recall, this next flip is the first of the fancy ones. I quite like this page. not just for the value of cards like the LILLIE and the Cynthia, but also just for the very cool spread of cards here. As I mentioned before, this was the first set that introduced the Dawnwings and Duskmane Necrozmas, and the texture on these cards is very, very cool. At the time as well, Celesteela was included in some decks because it had some very unique abilities that were very powerful at the time. If I recall, I may be incorrect on this, but I'm pretty sure the decks that used this card were not really all that thrilled to use Celesteela as an attacker. They just wanted to be a nice disruption slash support card. This set was also the second set to feature Pheromosa and Xurkitree and Celesteela. These guys first got their printings in Crimson Invasion, but Crimson Invasion mostly featured Guzzlord and Buzzwole, and I think Blacephalon, I'm not sure. But some people really like these Ultra Beast cards. Also, as you can probably tell, the Evolutions played a decent part in the early Sun and Moon era sets. So people are really into collecting these Glaceon and Leafeons from this set even now. Alright, so the moment we've all been waiting for. The LILLIE and the Cynthia, and the other full art trainers that are very sought after. Since we opened 3 cases of these, we actually pulled 5 total of these full art LILLIEs and 4 total of the Cynthia, both of which very playable at the time. And so people were wanting to buy them up from anyone who had extras so that they could bling out their decks. I do not remember if the little texture misprint there is intended or not. It's hard for me to show with the glare for right now, but you can see a little texture issue there. Oops, hit the camera. But this card, very, very cool, very sought after, and worth quite a lot right now. Somewhere in the range of $250-ish, if I recall. Then the other big name one, the one that most people remember from this set, even if they never collected at the time, is this No Hat LILLIE. No Hat LILLIE was a reprint of the Hat LILLIE from Sun and Moon Base. And the Sun and Moon Base LILLIE is worth a little over $50 to $60 right now. And this one is almost $500. So the art on this one is just gorgeous. A ton of collectors really like this card, and it is very, very sought after. And part of its difficulty is, since it was playable, a lot of people would buy these to play in their decks and subsequently lower their condition and their value. So finding copies of these in a very high quality is difficult. Of course, since we pulled these directly and threw them into a binder at the time, ours are still as pack fresh as we can get. Cards like these two, LILLIE and Cynthia, are a part of a big set of cards that we sold to a local card shop nearing the beginning of our, or I should say the resurgence of our interest in master setting all of English. And so including cards like the LILLIEs and Cynthias in trades to the local card stores is a great way to help provide some value to your local store, ingratiate yourself with the owner and the people who work there, and to spread some of the love of these cards around the community a little bit more. Ever since that, we traded in, I'd say, about $10,000 worth of cards to them at the time, which were mostly tag teams, megas, and then full art trainers like these. They love us. Every time we go in, they're very happy to see us, and we've really built a solid friendship with the people who work there, which I think is quite appealing and a great part of this hobby for me. So on top of that, they always think of us first when they get new cards and are looking for buyers, because they know what we're trying to accomplish here. One last card from this page that I'll pull out is this Lucamine, and I won't say exactly why Lucamine looks like this compared to the previous incarnation of Lucamine, but if you play the games, you'll have some idea of why Lucamine is with black hair and inside of this strange beast. So, spoiler free, but go play the Sun and Moon games if you'd like to find out. Alright, so next page is where we start getting into the rainbows. The rainbows from this set, these were the new hyper rare cards. They're called hyper rares, mostly because they're Sun Moon era rainbow cards. I know a lot of the modern rainbows are just called rainbow rares or secret rares, but these ones I think were at least officially called in Japan hyper rare, and they may have been officially hyper rare in the US as well, or I should say in the rest of the world as well. These cards are less sought after than the full art counterparts, interestingly, because the rainbow effect to some people takes away from the appeal of the picture. So let me hold side by side these Leafeons as an example. Some people really appreciate, if I can get these to please focus. Okay. Yeah, you can see the Leafeon much clearer on the right side picture. Even though the right side one was way easier to get. Sorry, this full art one was way easier to get. Hopefully I said that correctly. I still quite like the rainbows, but a big part of that is because of my fond memories of opening sets like these, where the rainbows were the chase card. At the time, of course. Then, for these gold trainers, a lot of these were quite playable, and people really liked the escape board at the time. These unit energies found their way into some decks, but weren't necessarily one of the best cards at the time. And then if we look on this last page, we have the other two gold cards. Lunala and Solgaleo were like the secrets. All gold Pokemon, two-tone. This is one of the first times cards like this were printed, as far as I know. We have the Reshiram and Zekrom from Black-White base, which kind of have a similar feeling. And then in more modern sets, we have the Tapus from Prismatic that are a single color and then a gold background. Something that I think is fun to mention here is in our 3 cases, we pulled 2 of these Lunalas, and we pulled 0 of the Solgaleo. So interestingly, out of this entire binder, there's only 1 of these cards that was not pulled directly by us from the pack, and that is the Solgaleo. We ended up finding the Solgaleo at a Fairfield card show about 2 months ago, and it allowed us to finish this collection. Almost no one at these card shows has these cards. I don't really know why. I think part of it's that they're not all that valuable compared to some of the other cards that people are looking for, and they're not super sought after, but I think they're very, very neat. All right, and then I will just quickly flip through the reverses here, because those pages were obviously the most exciting ones, but something I wanted to mention is that the Sun Moon era reverses, I think, were some of the best reverse patterns at the time. So let me pull up this Dewpider, because he doesn't have a lot of text on him, but you can see the very prominent type symbol there, with the background of smaller versions of that same symbol. And that gives this card the reverses, a very unique and interesting look. You might notice that there are no prisms back here. There were no reverses of the prisms. There were no reverses of the half arts, as per usual. And these cards ended up just being relatively unwanted at the time, but now that means these are extra valuable because no one kept them in great condition. One final thing to highlight, this Empoleon with Total Command ended up being quite a bit of a jerk. I was about to use harsher language but decided against it. So this Total Command was quite annoying at the time, which holds quite well in line for Empoleon overall, where he's either unplayable or has an attack based on benched Pokemon that is very frustrating to play against. Alright, well, thank you for listening to the ramble about Ultra Prism. This is one of my favorite Sun and Moon era sets, although I could still be honest and say that about just about any set. Because in terms of Pokemon, I enjoy everything, from Shadowless all the way up to the modern sets like Destined Rivals and Prismatic Evolutions. Alright. Well, thank you for watching. This has been fun to flip through these and reminisce a little bit about when we opened these, and I will see you guys later for another series, either next Monday for Master Set Monday 3, where we're going to choose a card from yet another of the generations of Pokemon TCG, or maybe a little bit sooner for a different series. Thanks for watching. Bye.